Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Geek Addicts, the pop culture podcast where we end up going bankrupt and have to sell our movie rights to a whole bunch of different studios, and then we have to deal with the scraps we're left over, and somehow it works and becomes a multi-million-dollar franchise. I am Bill, and this is Matt. How you doing, Matt?
I am doing all right, Bill. How's things with you?
Oh, it's been a lot these last couple of weeks. I am so tired, like every day this week. Like yesterday, I got home. I left an hour early from work, got home, had a beer, got halfway through it, and the next thing you know, it's 5 hours later. I fell asleep on the couch.
Typical.
It's
It's about that's how you know you're approaching 30. Or are you 30 now? I forget.
I got like 2 more months
Gotcha.
at the time of
Yep.
this recording.
hmm Yeah, that happens to me a lot. You know, it's just one of those things. It's funny because I see like Facebook reels or whatever they are, and like YouTube shorts. Like so many things that it's just like, oh, gaming in your 30s, and then you sit down, you see them sit down, and they play for like 5 seconds, and then like it goes to the next frame, and they're asleep. And it's so true.
It's either that or like gaming in your 30s. It doesn't happen because you don't have
Mhm.
fucking time to game anymore.
Yeah, no
Uh,
shit.
like I barely have
Oh
time
yeah.
to sit down and read anymore. Like I was trying to catch up on some comics this week, and I would sit down and try reading them, and I just the next thing I know, I'm falling asleep. I'm so
Mhm.
tired.
Yeah. Well, I've been chipping away at Berserk, but still making steady progress on that because I don't know. God, I just can't get over his artwork. It's so fucking good, and it's
Mm.
like it's so darkly good, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah, no,
you,
he's
you
he's
really you really get the tone based on his artwork.
yeah, it's a very bleak series.
That's they could have called the series bleak, and it would have been accurate.
Yeah, Berserk kind of works. Still one of those shows I can't get into or series I can't get into, but it's just because it's not my style. But I can appreciate I can appreciate it for what it is because it is very, very good in what
Yeah,
it does well.
it's an incredibly well told story. Like it's like honestly, like Guts is probably one of the deepest characters I've ever seen in any anime or manga, and that's saying a lot.
Yeah, I think my problem with it is it's just too bleak. Like I'm like this. It's
Yeah,
like this is just sad to read.
yeah. I honestly believe that the only reason he included Puck, the little fairy character that follows Guts around, is just to have like that one character that can give like even the most minuscule amount of levity in situations.
Yeah,
Because it gets pretty bad. Like there's a whole like little mini arc at one point after the Golden Age arc where basically Guts like encounters this village, and there's like all these like they call them fairies or pixies or something, but what they really are just cursed children, and then he has to kill them all. And the way demons work in Berserk is pretty much all demons were once human, and when you kill them they revert to their human forms. So everybody came out and saw what he did and just saw a bunch of chopped up children. So yeah,
yeah,
it's pretty dark.
yeah. That's pretty. That's a series for a certain mindset. I always say, and I don't have that mindset.
Yeah, that's it's not a series for the faint at heart. I can say that much. Not for squeamish people.
It's not even that for me. It's just it's like it's too depressing for me at
Mm,
times. Like I'm like it's the reason why I don't like The Last of Us Part Two. It's like it's just too dark and too sad, and I'm just like, nope, I don't like it. I
I
appreciate
get
it, but I don't like it.
it. But for a more happier uh topic of discussion, I watched Slime season 3 this week.
Nice.
I enjoyed it. See, and this isn't to say anything bad about Slime because I do like the series, but I don't like the parts where it's trying to take itself seriously. You know, like
Not
there are
a
sections
not a
there are
not a
hmm?
not a fan of the meetings.
I was literally about to say that. It's a fucking constant like, oh, let's talk about our plans and this and that. Oh, that damn slime, we're gonna get him. Like, and they try to make it so serious in those moments, and it's just like the series is the best. The series is at its best when you get situations like Hinata going to the ramen shop. Like
Yeah.
that is like the series at its peak for me. Or like when they're planning the festival. Like that was like my favorite stuff in that season. And like the first like 6, 7 episodes where they're just taking everything super seriously. I'm just like, ugh, I was like rolling my eyes the whole time.
I don't know. I did enjoy the occasional appearance of Shuna the Enforcer, like where they'd be having a very deep and dark conversation, then Shuna would just appear in the back and be like, "You're not doing anything bad, are you?" And then they just get
Mm,
terrified because they're afraid of her for whatever reason.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like maybe it just like the back and forth of like, does it want to be a serious show or does it want to be like a goofy slice of life show? And I feel like I like it more as a slice of life than when it tries to be like, because it feels like half of it is like the stuff that I like where it's like very like lighthearted and just goofy. And the other half is either meeting after meeting or Rimuru too strong.
Well, it's an isekai, so of course Rimuru is too strong, but it's also kind of it's supposed to be making fun of isekais where like the where the entire point is that he's OP because he made himself OP.
I
But
did
they
love
kind of
hmm?
I was gonna say they kind of play with that with the other character that created his own power, where he just his power is
Chosen
essentially
One.
he wills everyone
Yeah,
into agreeing with him.
that
He
was
doesn't
actually it
actually.
was that's actually where I was going. I was gonna say like I really liked that character. He was great.
Yeah, I like that. I liked I like the running joke of Benny Maru's harem, which wants
Yep.
nothing to do with, but they've all established it as a thing that's legal now.
hmm
But
Yeah. I mean,
it
there was
was more Shuna and Shion just tricking Rimuru into allowing harems.
yeah, like I liked a lot of the like probably more like the latter half of that season, but that's the thing is like when it's good, you know. And I know that's, subjective,
It
but
is a slow. That season 3 does have a slow start. It
yeah.
picks up towards the end though.
I don't know what the hell is going on with what's his face though. Yuki, is that his name? Like obviously
Oh,
like he's supposed to be like the big bad in the shadows, but he's so nice when he's around, so it's just like I don't know how to feel about him.
he's like I think there's supposed to be some mystery around him, but it's so fucking obvious that like everyone has already figured it out.
Mhm. Yeah, well, by the end of season 3, like even Rimuru is like, yeah, like he acts super nice when he's around, but I know he's the one behind everything. Like, so it's just kind of have to just wait it out, and wait for him to slip up and reveal himself. But
Yeah, I think he's like TV Tropes considers him like a walking spoiler, where like pretty much
mhm,
everything about his character is a spoiler, so you really can't get super deep into it because it's like he's so obvious about it.
mhm. I'm just saying, like, how can you go against Rimuru when you're stuck in this like fantasy world? And like, yeah, there's cool stuff. You got crazy powers. You could do all this crazy shit, but like Rimuru gave you manga. Like he's trying to reintroduce manga into this world. Like, how you gonna go against that?
Yeah.
Not to mention, like, even like it is in shows like these, it's like a thing where like food is like the most powerful thing you could have,
Hmm.
and Rimuru is bringing back all this like Earth food in this fantasy world. You'd think Yuki would be behind that, but
Hmm.
whatever.
I think my favorite character in season 3 was the other demon lord. I'm forgetting her name right now.
Uh,
Luminous.
oh, the vampire chick.
Yeah, the lesbian vampire.
Yeah, she was cool.
They're not subtle about that either. Like,
No, she's got like a Mr. Freeze thing going on, where she's got like the lady in the crystal or whatever.
yeah, but then she's also got a thing for Hinata, which isn't subtle either.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing I'll say about the show is it's definitely not subtle at all.
No, it's not. It's also very fan servicey, but it's at the same time it's not like aggressively fan servicey
It,
in the
it
main
toes the line.
series. The OVAs are full range on it, but
Yeah, it definitely toes the line though.
yes, it does.
um, but yeah, aside from that, I finally finished I finally picked Boruto back up
I
after
still
like
gotta
a
do
year.
that. I still
Um,
gotta do that.
well, I'm still skipping around. I'm not watching all of it by any means, but I finished the time travel arc, and I finished that little mini arc with the Feudal Lord's kid, which actually is manga canon. Um, and I started up another part of it, but I didn't get far enough in to really understand what. I know they introduced Kara, which goddamn,
I
it takes over 100 episodes to introduce Kara. Like that's fucking crazy to me because
I
they're
think
introduced
I
like right after the movie in the manga.
I think I just got to them last time I picked it up. I finished the prison arc, and then that's kind of where I left off.
Yeah, they referenced that a bunch in the stuff with the Feudal Lord's kid, and I was
Yeah,
really confused by it because
I got up
I
to
thought wasn't that a setting in one of the movies, the prison?
maybe I don't know. I don't remember. Um,
Um,
I got to episode 155. That's where I left off.
no, so you got pretty deep in. So you don't even have like that much left. And
I
I
mean,
think most of what you have left is like manga canon stuff. So that's like the good stuff.
there's 293 episodes, so I still got
Holy shit.
a little over half to go.
Jesus Christ. I thought it was like on par with original Naruto. I didn't think it was that much. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, there's almost 300 episodes. It's
Well,
long.
I was looking into it just out of curiosity, just to see when the anime is coming back. Apparently, there are no plans to bring the anime back until 2027 at the absolute earliest, but most likely won't be until at least 2028.
Jeez. Well,
But honestly, I'm kind of okay with it because as much as like I'd like to see a lot of the Two Blue Vortex stuff animated, give the manga some time to come out because then we don't have to deal with all this like super bloated Boruto crap.
but it's but it's a Naruto show. It has to have bloated crap for no reason.
Yeah, well, that was always a flaw in Naruto. So let's
I know.
not continue repeating the same fucking mistakes that Naruto has been making for the past 20 years.
But we need to have Baruto regress as a character every 5 arcs because like
Ugh.
the manga's he makes a huge my favorite is when he actually makes like character improvements during filler arcs, and then because the manga he's not there yet, he regresses on an actual canon arc, and it's like great.
Mhm.
Like he has
Typical.
such a great character moment during the time travel arc, and that's apparently all filler, which yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Then he
Although it's
immediately
like
reverses back after.
it was funny because when I looked up I looked up the like filler list because you know you have to with shows like this, and it said on the thing like, oh, Boruto has a small filler of like 11%. I'm like, no, false, false,
So even they
because
don't know his half.
everything that says anime canon, that's filler.
Yeah, those filler things though tend to only pick like arcs that have nothing to do with like anything, like
Hmm.
the getting a license episodes or the baseball episodes, stuff like that.
But those ones are the fun filler. Like,
Yeah, they are, but I don't know. Boring filler.
like,
Boring
what
filler
does
is even more.
Kakashi's face look like? Like, those are the fun ones.
It's obvious he's got giant lips
Yes.
or buck teeth. The
Um,
buck teeth was always funny.
yeah. You know, they did that. They did that episode twice. They did it once in Naruto and once in Shippuden.
Yep, because
It was like the exact same thing both times too.
they weren't the most creative. That's all I'll say.
But yeah, I'm finally back on that. I'm gonna keep chipping away at it. Eventually, I'll catch up. Um, I also finally finished the Rescue Rukia arc of Bleach, which is a long time coming because I've been working on that for a while. Which isn't actually it's not a very long arc by any means. It's like maybe 40 episodes at most. But like, yeah, I don't know, just because of like the way Hulu works, where it just like you can't download it, so I was kind of limited to watching it on my free time at home.
Hmm.
And a lot of times when I'm at home, like I'm just kind of hanging out, and if I'm not in a mood to watch something that I would need to pay attention to, or something, I'll end up just throwing on like Always Sunny or Futurama or something.
Yeah, that's me with Friends. I was a Friends on when I'm bored.
Hmm. Yeah, I also started watching Samurai Champloo for the first time.
Huh.
It's an interesting show. Have you ever watched it?
No, I've honestly my anime watching's kind of come to a halt lately because I've just been so
Mhm.
tired, and when I'm tired, I can't focus.
Yeah. Well, you had a busy week either way.
Yeah, it's weird because it was busy, but it like wasn't at the same time.
Hmm.
It was just one of the. It was a very draining week, like that, and like the
Yeah.
weather. The weather's been really fucking weird up here lately.
Hmm.
It's like 90
That's for sure.
degrees. It's like 90 degrees here one day.
Really? I mean, we've had some pretty warm days, but I don't think it ever got up that high.
I got in my car after work and I looked at the thermometer. It was like 90. So it was probably like 80 something, but it was still like, what the fuck?
Hmm. That's wild. Wild.
Yeah. Other than that, it's just money's tight right now. So I haven't been buying a lot of new games lately. It's kind of
Hmm.
good stuff coming out though, too, which makes it worse.
Yeah, tell me about it. There's a bunch of games I want to get right now. I mean, obviously, Sparking Zero is going to happen. Like, it's probably going to be a joint Christmas present for me and Xander.
Hmm.
Cindy and I have already discussed that because it's a game both of us want. So that one's definitely going to happen. But then, we also have like the Dragon Quest remake. I still haven't gotten Final Fantasy VII Rebirth yet.
Hmm.
Um, I'd
Metaphor just
like
came out.
what?
Metaphor just came out.
I don't know what
That's
that is.
it's the new Atlas game. It's by the it's a new studio within Atlas, but it's the Persona team. They made a
Oh,
new
okay,
game.
gotcha. Well, on that subject, I also want to get the Persona 3 Reload at some point in the future because actually, I had a random um like urge to listen to Persona 4 music today. Actually, you know what it was? I think I was listening to the Between Two Pods, and like they were mentioning like favorite boss music or whatever. And my mind immediately went to that like 8-bit boss theme from
Oh,
Persona 4.
yep. The one that's only in golden. It wasn't in the original.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was the original just used the regular boss theme. They changed that for golden. They made it the 8-bit one for the Michio boss.
Hmm. Yeah, I still really want to see the Persona 4 anime.
When you're down, we'll definitely watch it, or if I come up there, I'll remember to bring it.
It's pretty. It's fairly short, right?
it's 26. It's not bad.
Oh, is it? Oh, wow, it's actually longer than I thought. Well, in that case, whether if I go down there, I'm going to bring my laptop and rip the DVDs, so I just have it.
I have Blu-rays, so I'm not sure if that'll be a problem.
Ah, shit. Yeah,
It's Sentai. The DVDs don't exist to them.
gotcha. Damn, that's a bummer.
I'd give you my PSN account. I used to have them on there, but Sony decided to take all that stuff away, so it's gone now.
Rude, rude. See, that's the thing with digital stuff. That's why,
Yep.
like the digital media that I have is like stuff that I ripped or downloaded because I don't trust these motherfuckers. They keep taking that shit away, even though you pay for it, and then you don't get to keep it.
You don't see that they're rewording those contracts now because legally they've been called out, and now they actually have to specify you're not buying the product, you're buying the right to access content, essentially.
Yeah, which I don't know. It's defeats the whole purpose of digital media, but whatever.
Eh,
That's why I don't like them trying to phase out physical media is for shit like that. It's bullshit.
I mean, it's gonna be a stubborn battle to the end. I know that's for sure.
Hmm.
So I was actually looking into the Persona 4 anime just out of curiosity because if I could find it for cheap, I was going to send it to you. But unfortunately, let's see, what have we got? So
Yeah, I can imagine.
there's no available sets on Amazon right now.
Yeah,
It's
I feel like eBay would be the place to look for something like that.
oh, so you can get the complete series Blu-ray for $500,
Jesus.
or there is a DVD, I guess, but that's for 250.
Oh, half price. Look at that.
Yeah,
Jesus.
you only have to sell a kidney. Um,
Yeah, well, I'll look for bootlegs. Thank you.
Yeah,
What is it?
and you
Aniplex? Is fucking Aniplex again or something?
uh-huh.
Yeah, I figured. Fuckers.
Sentai did the dub, but Aniplex is the distribution, so you can understand. Yeah, let's see what
Makes
eBay
sense.
says.
You
Persona
could probably
4
find bootlegs on eBay.
anime. Oh. So you can get both sets for 250 or just season 1 for 70.
Jesus.
Yeah, fuck that.
Fucking wild. Fucking Aniplex, man. They take all the good shit, put it behind this
Yeah.
outrageous paywall. You could take you it's like you could buy a PS5 or you could buy fucking Persona 4 Golden or Persona 4 the anime. Like what the fuck, dude?
Yeah. It's it's ridiculous. Um yeah, that one
Like you
sucks
could
too.
buy a refurbished PS4 or you could buy Darker Than Black season 1.
Yeah. It's sad too because all the Persona animes are on Crunchyroll except for the original Persona 4 anime because it's the Aniplex.
It's bullshit.
And the dub was done by Sentai, and because of that now, even if another studio licenses it, they don't have rights to the dub because Sentai has the rights to the dub.
So
Which
I'm
is
assuming it's not on High Dive.
no.
Gotcha.
It's a shame too, because it has most of the game cast back too, which is really nice.
Man, that's such a bummer. Oh well, I'm just gonna have to try and get a disk drive that works at Blu-rays, and then I'll have to also buy a program where I can rip Blu-rays. It'd
Yeah.
still be a hell of a lot cheaper than buying the DVDs.
Yeah. Either that or we're gonna have to marathon it one of these days.
Yeah, no shit.
Uh, but speaking of marathoning, we should get into our topic for this episode.
Yeah, the marathon that I went on this year, which holy shit, it was a lot.
That's definitely a way of putting it. We're talking about the MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe. One of the most fascinating experiments that I think a company has ever done, and the fact that it worked, and we're now finally seeing it start to kind of peter off.
Mhm.
It's very interesting to see. Um,
Yeah, I remember when like the because I remember when like the first Iron Man movie came, like the first couple of Iron Man movies came out, and at the time it was just a very like isolated thing.
well, I remember when
Like,
Iron Man 1 came out, I had no idea who the fuck Iron Man was.
I mean, I was aware of Iron Man, but that's only because my little cousin was into Marvel stuff, so he like watched a lot of the cartoons, like the Avengers cartoons and stuff like that, like Hulk versus Wolverine and all that stuff. So like, I was aware of a lot of like the characters that they brought into the MCU early,
It
but like
it's
like we've talked about before, I was never a Marvel kid, so like I was aware of them, but I didn't know anything about them.
I was definitely not a Marvel kid other than Spider-Man. I was a
Agreed.
DC kid from the beginning. So when it's very interesting to me. Like I didn't know much about Marvel's history. I knew Spider-Man for a little bit until One More Day happened and I lost interest after that.
Mhm.
Um I was mostly on the DC side of things. So like when I remember it's very interesting looking back and realizing like Marvel the whole reason why the MCU ended up working is ironically like a stroke of one of the biggest like strokes of luck I think a studio's ever had. Where
Mhm.
like Marvel was like I alluded to it in the intro, but Marvel was so like bad in like bankruptcy, like they were doing very poorly during the late '90s, early 2000s. They were forced to basically sell off all of their like film rights to like a bunch of different studios to basically get themselves out of bankruptcy. I mean, famously, like they sold the X-Men to Fox, 20th Century Fox.
Mhm.
They sold Spider-Man to Sony. That one still kicks them in the butt to this day.
Yeah.
And I think they sold a bunch of others out. Like Hulk, I think went to Universal. Um, a whole bunch of different studios, and essentially doing this, they lost the film rights to like all of these characters because these were bad contracts that Marvel signed. Like Sony has basically like, from what I've read, like Sony basically has like exclusive rights to Spider-Man in films, I think in games. maybe not TV anymore. I know they renegotiated it recently, but like in film, definitely they have like exclusive rights to Spider-Man basically in forever.
Mhm.
Um, unless Disney buys Sony, which I isn't going to happen anytime soon,
No.
anyways.
Although if any
Shit.
company was going to do it.
Well, the problem is Disney is at the point now where if they were that crazy, they'd probably spark some the government coming in because of monopoly at that point.
Yeah.
Because it's getting a little. They bought 20th Century Fox for God's sake, just to get the X-Men back
Mhm.
and Fantastic Four. You know what's really funny though? I was reading this. Apparently, when they signed the Sony deal, they actually offered Sony like a bunch of the pretty much all of their like C-list characters, and Sony was like, "Who gives a shit about them? We just want Spider-Man." Which, to be fair, there's a lot of revisionist history nowadays where people will act like Iron Man was always huge. Iron Man was a C-list, B-list like hero that no one really gave a shit about, like for
Yeah.
a long time. Like honestly, the Avengers was basically a team of C-list or B-list heroes that were like their only reason they were significant was because they were on the Avengers.
Yeah.
Like there's a reason the big studios wanted Spider-Man, the X-Men, the Hulk, because they were the ones that were actually like iconic to like the
Mhm.
average Joe that wasn't into comics. So it's really funny that like basically all they had left was like the B-listers that nobody cared about. And it was like a stroke of pure luck that like Iron Man ended up being like the massive success it was.
Yeah. Like, it
Because I
was
mean,
honestly really surprising to me too, because I remember, like, because I didn't really like, I didn't actually like sit down and watch any of the Iron Man movies until like recently, like past like 4 or 5 years, give or take.
hmm,
And like, but I remember like the big boom when like the first couple Iron Man movies came out, like it was huge. Like everyone was all like that fucking Iron Man song was all over the place. Like everyone was
which is so
crazy
fucking
about it.
funny because I don't think the Black Sabbath song actually appears in the first movie. It is in the second one, I think.
Mhm.
Um, Iron Man's a very interesting film because it's like I think at the time it was like a no name character, a director who I believe like his previous film was a flop, like, and he was not John Favreau. Favreau, I think his name was.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I think his previous films weren't that successful. Robert Downey Jr. was like considered a washed up actor by that point. Um,
Yeah, that really came around, didn't it?
yeah, and now he's freaking like one of the biggest actors on the planet. But like at the
Mhm.
time, he was mostly past his time and was basically like most people thought this was probably just like his last desperate role.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, just a ton of stuff. Like it was like one of those like recipes for like nobody thought this was going to succeed, and then it ends up being this like $585 million box office success, and
Mhm.
it launched the cinematic universe. Like, which is hilarious too, because the second film in the universe kind of was not that great.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I honestly, I wonder how, like, how would like Disney have gone forward if Iron Man hadn't worked out? Like, if that movie, like,
So
would they have pushed it and kept trying, or would that have just been like a no? I guess it just didn't work.
I don't know. Apparently, I'm reading this. Apparently, Disney didn't even have the rights to Iron Man initially. Like apparently like Fox, like Universal and New Line Cinema all had film ideas in development before they kind of just gave up. And I think the rights, I think a way a lot of these contracts are worded is I believe the way the contracts are worded is as long as a new film is in development every couple of years, then the rights are constantly will still be in like by the contract binding. But I think if they don't make a film over a certain period of time, then the rights automatically revert back to the original owner.
Mhm. I think
And I believe,
and that's how a lot of the Stephen King film rights work.
yeah, because I know that's partially why like the Fantastic Four, that really awful movie came out, I think in like the late 2010s because they had to make a movie to retain the rights.
Hmm.
Um, there was
Yeah, I
also
watched
that.
that recently too. I wasn't a huge fan.
No, that movie's god awful. It really gives you an appreciation for the 2005 film,
Hmm.
which isn't good either, but at least it's not that.
Still better. It's at least entertaining.
Yeah, it's decent. Like by superhero film standards, it's watchable.
Yeah. The
Um,
the newer one, that was there's just like they tried way too hard to make it dark, and I just didn't like that.
I mean, it was very on brand with the Fox X-Men. So,
Yeah.
but
Which
yeah, it's
we could make you could do the Fox X-Men as its own episode, honestly, because I love those movies.
yeah. I mean, we could do other superhero films also because there's a lot. How DC still doesn't know how to fucking make a superhero film.
Yeah, no kidding.
Um,
Um
it's kind of interesting though, like the MCU, like other than Iron Man one, I mean, all the films were successful, but like other than like Iron Man one, like the Hulk, Incredible Hulk wasn't a very good film. Like it's okay, but it's kind of a mess.
and
And
by the
then
next movie they recasted him, didn't they?
yeah, Edward Norton was only in the first movie. It was Mark Ruffalo in every other appearance. Well,
Yeah,
because
because I don't I was gonna say I don't think the Hulk appears again until the first Avengers movie, right?
yeah, well, because the Incredible Hulk's a weird one because it's not an origin story like most of them. It's
Hmm.
it's like a pseudo sequel to that to that early 2000s Ang Lee Hulk film.
Hmm.
The one that's just called Hulk, which is debatably better of a movie depending on who you ask.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's like a pseudo sequel to that, but it's also not, and it's like it's kind of its own weird thing. It didn't really have a direction at all. Um,
Yeah.
like the only reason it's even connected to the the cinematic universe is because Iron Man shows up at the end.
Yeah, that's true. I forgot about that. Yeah, because they
Yeah,
really started going like crazy with the post-credit scenes and stuff like that. Like some of them
Mar-
had like three, three
the
post-credit scenes.
the MCU has indoctrinated all of us now that we wait at every movie we go to see just for the potential of a post credit scene.
Hmm.
Like they do it in fucking anime films now. Like I fucking stayed to the end of the Spy Family movie because I knew there was going to be a post credit scene because that's just how it is now.
Hmm. I mean, how like good Dragon Ball Evolution have one?
Yeah, I'm just I want to see a film like one of these days, like end with like you sit through the credits and then like a black screen that comes up and it just says no end credit scene. Go fuck yourself.
My favorite was at the end of the first Deadpool movie where he like comes out with like the Ferris Bueller thing. And it's just like, what are we expecting? And another, are you expecting a friggin' Sam Jackson to come out with an eye patch? Like, no, go away. Like,
Yeah, well that was funny though. That's like ironic.
yeah.
Uh, Thinking about it though, like even Iron Man 2 isn't that great of a film. It's honestly kind of like a sophomore slump in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like a lot of the like intro films for these characters throughout the first phase just weren't great. Like I feel like Marvel didn't really start to hit its like the MCU didn't really start to hit its stride until the Avengers. Um
Which is weird because I don't like the Avengers that much. Like that's kind of a hot take. I didn't find that film particularly interesting.
I mean I found it I mean that was my first introduction to the MCU was the Avengers film.
So I didn't see it until years after it came out. Like it's really sad, but my first MCU film was fucking Thor 2. So what a place to start. Um,
Yeah.
one of the worst films in the series.
I
Um,
mean I don't know if this is a hot take, but I like all the Thor movies. I don't know why. Maybe I just like the
I
character or the way Chris Hemsworth plays him, but I've enjoyed every Thor movie I've watched, including
I
Love and Thunder.
yeah, I didn't. I still haven't seen that one, but I didn't hate Thor 2. I thought it was interesting enough. I will say the best one is probably Ragnarok, but Thor 1 is also very good. Honestly, Thor and Captain America I think have the best origin story films.
Mhm. Well, I
So
just love like the fish out of water thing. Like that's like one of my favorite things that fiction does. And like I don't know why, just the way Chris Hemsworth plays with that, just it works for me. I find it incredibly entertaining.
Yeah, Thor 1 was really good. I love Captain America: The First Avenger. I thought that was a very good film.
Yeah, I definitely like that. That was just like exclusively in the past. You know, like him, like
Yeah,
before he was frozen or whatever.
it's got one of my favorite lines in a fucking film ever with like Red Skull being like, "You are failing." It's
That's
such a
another thing. It's like I've noticed like as I watch through all the MCU movies, I'm like, wow, there are a lot of Lord of the Rings actors throughout these movies. Like a lot.
there's a lot of big name actors and actresses in general. Like
Mhm.
Iron Man 2, it's funny that like you think about Iron Man 2, and whenever I think of that film, the one thing I really think back on it is the opening Formula One scene, just because I thought that was funny, but also that was the first appearance of Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow.
Yep.
Also, one of like the MCU's biggest like fumbling the bag moments ever is the fact that they didn't give her a fucking her own movie until like Phase 4.
They didn't give her her own movie until after she was already dead.
I know, like they Marvel fumbled the bag so hard with that. Like they didn't have a female lead film until Phase 3 with Ant
Mhm.
Man and the Wasp, like that, and then like Captain Marvel after that. Even though I don't like Captain Marvel very much, but that's besides the point.
Well, I find that kind of surprising. So she's basically Marvel Superman.
Yeah, that she doesn't. Her characters, her. Uh, I don't know. She doesn't really feel like Superman to me. Superman's also a different character in general entirely.
I mean, it's a different kind of origin story, and like obviously, like her personality is different. But as far as like power system and everything else, she's basically Superman.
Yeah, that's not why I like Superman though. Like I like one of the things with Superman to me, like just a little tangent, is like it's very easy to make super like a bad Superman story. Like Man of Steel to me is like not a great Superman story because it kind of misses the point of what
Mhm.
Superman is supposed to be. Like to me, the best Superman is like Lois and Clark, the or Superman and Lois, I should say. The CW show, like that is to me like
Mhm.
that's like perfect. Like that is how I like imagine. Like that's my favorite interpretation of the character where he's like it's Clark he's Clark first, Superman is what he does kind of thing.
Mhm.
Um but
That makes
yeah,
sense.
Captain Marvel I don't know. I just didn't like that movie very much. I felt like it was trying too hard.
I did like that it was very 90s. Just
I mean, I laughed at the blockbuster scene. That was kind of it.
mhm.
Um I think I was also kind of annoyed by the marketing for that movie because like the whole time they were like all of the reviews were like finally a female led superhero movie, and the whole time I'm sitting here going like Wonder Woman's not even a year old yet. Like
Mhm.
it's not even that old. Like that annoyed the hell out of me because I was like Wonder Woman just came out. How are you already forgetting about it?
That kind of thing happens a lot, though.
Well,
Like,
it's because it's
like
a
not to go on a
DC.
tangent or any, not to go on a tangent or anything, but like I was doing research into like what like the MCU like X-Men movie that's in production, and I kept seeing things about like, oh, it's gonna be primarily like female led and people of color and all this other stuff. I'm like, do you guys not even pay attention in X-Men? It's always been that way. What are you talking about? Like,
I mean,
that's the whole
that's
point of X-Men.
that's kind of a problem with the MCU at the moment in general. It's kind of lost itself in
Hmm.
what it wants to be. And I don't really I think honestly, I think the problem with the MCU right now is just the fact that like Endgame kind of felt like the ending. And we've just kind
Yeah,
of most people it's kind of like it ended there and everyone was like, okay,
yeah,
like what do we do next?
yeah. I get that. I mean, there's definitely like, I mean, there are some movies and shows post Endgame that I did like, but it definitely felt like they were fumbling in the dark, trying to recapture the same success that phases 1 through 3 had, and
I mean
I feel
it
like
says
they should have given it some time. They should have taken a break.
Yeah, honestly, because like when I think about Phase Four, like the movies I think of are like I think of Spider-Man, No Way Home. That's or is it Far From Home? The one with the other
I think
Spider-Man.
that's No Way Home. But I believe that's phase. Is it? I think that's maybe it is phase four.
That's it's Phase Four. That was like one of the first things after Endgame.
Right, right, right. Yeah,
Um,
because it. Yeah, okay.
yeah, because I remember that was like one of the few things I liked. Then everything else I've kind of just been like, meh. Like they don't interest me. Like I still haven't seen like the third Ant Man, although I've heard it's really boring. Uh,
Trying to remember. Is that the one where they get real small? Like they go
Quantumania,
to
I
like
think
the
it's called.
atom. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's kind of pointless now because like they were like really pushing Kang in that movie, and now that's not a thing in the MCU anymore. So they
Yeah,
kind of rendered that movie pointless. Like any sort of like
yeah,
good world like foreshadowing slash world building, like building up to something. They kind of just did away with that. So which is really stupid too, because with the whole concept of the multiverse and like they've already played with this with like the Loki series and like they could have just recast him because it's the whole concept of multi universe, multiple versions of the same person. They didn't. There's a fucking alligator that's a Loki. Like we don't. It didn't have to be the same actor if it was really that big of a problem.
yeah. It's just, I'm
So they
just
could have just kept going with the same idea and just recast him. They recasted fucking Bruce Banner. Like I don't see what the big deal is, but whatever. Disney.
Marvel. Yeah, Marvel's weird about that because Chadwick Bosman, Black Panther, he asked them to recast him after he passed away, and they didn't. So they're kind of I don't know.
Well, I think that's just an extension of the whole trying to push for female leads, which
True.
which makes sense in certain ways. But I mean, we already have with Captain Marvel, and then with uh what was the Miss Marvel, like the new one. She's like supposed to be like a Jin.
I didn't watch the Marvels, so I have no idea.
Yeah. Well, apparently that was like the biggest flop
It,
Marvel
it was
movie.
it didn't go well. That's all I know. I've heard a lot of mixed things. It's so hard to tell nowadays because some people's reasoning for disliking things is all over the place, and
Yeah,
I'm not
that's
going to get
fair.
into that on this show. Um,
I mean, I didn't hate it, but it definitely wasn't their strongest movie.
I didn't like the first one, so I wasn't inclined to see the second one. That was my reasoning behind it.
Hmm.
Um,
Um, I liked
Loving.
I did like Multiverse of Madness, that
Oh,
Doctor
is that?
Strange movie.
Oh yeah, yeah. Freaking Sam Raimi directed that.
Yeah, like that was one of the few post Endgame movies that I actually very much enjoyed. Um,
I
they
heard
brought
that one
Patrick
was.
Stewart back as Professor X in that.
Yeah, I heard that because they're very smart with who they bring back. I mean, 'cause let's face it, Patrick Stewart basically is Professor X at this point.
Yeah,
Older
he,
Professor X, anyways.
he was born to play that role.
Well, I mean, they've basically made him look like like Patrick Stewart in the comics at this point.
Hmm.
Love and Thunder was an interesting one. Like that one, that's like one of the more mixed ones I've seen in a while. Like a lot of people really liked it, a lot of people didn't.
I saw a lot of hate for it, but I think from what I saw, at least, I feel like a lot of the hate comes from the fact that they kind of went a little bit more on the goofier side with that movie in a lot of ways. But at the
Yeah,
same time, like there was a lot of serious shit in it. Like Natalie Portman had cancer in that movie, and like like that was kind of like a really serious thing. But like then they were just like, hey, give her Thor powers. Fuck it, let's make it funny. Oh look, Chris Hemsworth is naked in front of Zeus. That's funny. Like
now it'd be funny if it was Fat Thor from from Endgame.
yeah. But I mean, there was a lot of things in that movie that I liked. Like I said, like I don't think there's a single Thor movie that I like actively disliked. I enjoyed all of those ones. And I think I just like Thor the character the most out of all the MCU people.
Love and
Um,
Thunder was definitely the one that it was definitely more of a split reaction. It wasn't a like either hated it or liked it kind of thing. Because I
mhm.
know like a lot of them, it's been people just have not liked a lot of these movies. I think Guardians 3 was okay. I still haven't seen it. I haven't really seen any Phase 4 movies just because like I'm not gonna lie, after Endgame, I kind of just lost interest.
Well, see, the hard thing with everything past Endgame is you also have to watch the series for a lot of stuff to make because the
That
series tie in with the movies.
that's the thing. Like that's another flaw. Like I think that they're going through is now they've gone a little too heavy on the series, and a lot of people just don't have time
Mhm.
to watch this stuff.
Yeah, like Multiverse of Madness doesn't make sense if you don't watch WandaVision.
Hmm. And the
Like
new
WandaVision kind of sets up a lot of stuff, like and Loki.
hmm, also like the new Captain America. It's not going to make any sense unless you watched Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Hmm. Yeah, and the series were very hit or miss for me. Like there were like a lot of the I feel like the early ones are the ones that worked the best, like the ones that were closest to Endgame, like WandaVision and Loki and Falcon Winter Soldier. Like those ones I feel like were the strongest, and then like as they went on, they started getting weaker and weaker. Like I did not care for Echo at all. Like Hawkeye was all right, but I
I
don't
didn't
know.
even know. I didn't even know there was a Hawkeye series. So
Yeah, it's like they did like a Christmas thing, and he like had like a protege, and like they're trying to. I think they're trying to do like a Teen Titans kind of thing, but with Avengers, because they had like the Miss Marvel, and then she met up with like Hawkeye's protege later on, and they're trying to get a group going. It hasn't
so
actually happened yet, but they were teasing
so
it.
Marvel's ripping off DC for once.
But
They've done it in the past. But I mean,
yeah.
um,
So I mean, depending on how they do that, that could work out pretty well. But
it's kind of funny though. Like they, you can tell that they've reached absolute desperation mode when they greenlit Deadpool and Wolverine because it was like they were like, "We need help. Please make a good movie."
it worked though. It did well,
It
I think.
it worked and it was entirely pandering, but it was like the best kind of pandering.
But that's
Not
kind of like let's be real, like that's kind of when the MCU is at its best, is when it's just doing that.
well, there's two kinds of pandering. There's the pandering that nobody likes, where they're just trying to force stuff to like appeal to the lowest common denominator who aren't going to watch the movie anyways.
Mhm.
Um, and then there's like pandering to the fans and the stuff that like actually gets people interested, like basically all of Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah, like having Deadpool jump multiple universes, and then just like, oh, I just happen to be in the universe where Wolverine's fighting the Hulk, and then it's like, oh, yeah, look, it's fucking what's his face, oh,
Hugh
how am I
Jackman.
Henry Cavill,
All right, yeah,
you know.
because we need to make fun of that.
Hmm. And I'm gonna be honest with you, like I've heard people like talk negatively about it, but I honestly feel that Channing Tatum did a great job as Gambit. Like
Yeah, it was. He
I'd
wasn't
be
bad.
I'd be totally fine with it if he was just Gambit from like when they do the X-Men movie and he was just there as Gambit. I'd be totally fine with it.
Yeah, it's interesting too because like you'd mentioned that X-Men film, but then there's also the Fantastic Four film,
Mhm.
and I still don't know how I feel about Robert Downey Jr. as Doctor Doom.
I mean, I'll save my judgment on that until I actually see it.
It's either the
I
great.
think
It's
it has potential to work. It will if they're especially if they're going with the whole multiverse thing. It's just like, oh, this is just a universe where instead of becoming Iron Man, he became Doctor Doom, and like that is totally reasonable.
well, it's like the way I think about it is like it's either the most brilliant thing they've done or it's the most creatively bankrupt thing they've ever done. It's going to be one or the other, and I'm really curious to see where it goes.
And this is the thing though, is that the Doctor Doom thing. That's like, yeah, I think they are going to make a Fantastic Four movie before that, but because it's going to be an Avengers film, I feel like it's going to lean Spider-Man because of his relationship with Iron Man. So
I hope
if
so
they if they
because
if they go that route and lean Spider-Man going up against Doctor Doom, but it's Tony Stark Doctor Doom, like I feel like that has a lot of potential.
yeah, I don't think it's actually going to be Tony Stark, um, the character. I think it's still going to be Doctor Doom. I think it's just going to be Robert Downey Jr. playing it. But we'll have to wait and see on that because I have no idea.
I feel like the chances are pretty good that it's probably just going to be Tony Stark. I mean, yeah, they could do it's Victor Von Doom or whatever, but
I don't know. Something tells me if they don't make it Victor Von Doom, the fans are going to throw a fit.
I mean, the fans are going to throw a fit anyway. Let's be real.
True, but
Honestly,
Marvel.
I feel like if they went that route and just made it Tony Stark but evil, like I think that would work fine.
I don't think we're ever going to see his actual face. I think he's going to be in the costume the entire time. So
We'll
I
see.
don't know. It's so
Well,
far out,
but if they did that, then like, what's the point in Robert Downey Jr.? You know,
because he's
like
a big
there's
name and
no.
and he brings in people to the seats.
But if he's just wearing a mask the whole time, it doesn't matter. You know.
That won't stop people. They'll still come.
Yeah, whatever. Fair enough.
um, enough about Phase 4 though, because Phase 4 is kind of sad. Let's jump back down to like Phase. So we were talking Phase 1, how like a lot of the origin movies were pretty good for the most part.
They were decent, but like I my biggest problem with phase one is for every single one of those movies, they were all just fighting like nega versions of themselves. Like
That is an inherent Marvel problem. Like that is just something that Marvel has always been known for great heroes and kind of average villains.
mhm.
Like DC was more known for their villains because DC has some great villains.
I mean, there
Um,
are exceptions, but those exceptions are the ones that Marvel didn't have the rights to.
well,
So
yeah. I mean, most of them. When I think of iconic villains in Marvel, I think of like Magneto and all the Spider-Man
exactly.
villains who
Mhm.
they can't use. So
I mean, the closest thing to nega Spider-Man is Venom, but even that's a stretch.
well, technically, he is Naked Spider-Man when you really think about it.
But he's really not though. He just kind of copies his move. It's he has kind of his own thing going on, but I mean,
Well,
that's a whole
he's
different thing.
Venom's like a weird mix of like he's the suit that he had on, but Spider-Man rejected it. So it's the Venom symbiote. It copied his suit and all his powers, and then he rejected the suit, and it binded with Eddie Brock, who hated Peter Parker, and the suit hates Spider-Man. So it kind of became sort of like this villainous version of Spider. It's weird.
Yeah,
Symbiotes are weird in
but
general.
well, yeah, the whole concept of the Venom symbiote though is like he could have merged with anybody and copied their abilities. It just so happened that it was Spider-Man.
Yeah, and it started out as just a cool black suit before they made it a character.
Although apparently, I don't know if this is like the official uh like lore behind it, but I know it in at least one continuity. The first person that the Venom symbiote bonded with was Deadpool, and that's why Venom is so fucked in the head.
I don't. Well, I know that's not the original continuity. They might have retconned it. I know originally it just appeared in Secret Wars.
Mhm.
Like I haven't fully read that because I haven't read a lot of Marvel, but
Gotcha.
I know that iconic cover.
But anyways, back to phase one because we keep just talking about other parts of Marvel that have nothing to do with the MCU.
Yeah, Venom kind of does, depending on how you interpret that stinger at the end of No Way Home.
True. I mean, they definitely kind of left that up in the air, where it's like, hey, there's a little bit of him left here, so we could definitely do
Yeah,
something with Venom in the MCU now.
that
And
was basically the implication, but at the same time, I'm like, are they gonna do it? Because the last time they used Venom in a main Spider-Man film, it didn't go so well.
true, but it doesn't necessarily have to be Spider-Man because the MCU just kind of like throws whatever at the wall and sees what sticks. It could be anybody.
Yeah, Although it wouldn't be Venom at that point because Venom's whole thing is that he's based off of Spider. You know, we've already been over this. Let's let's so phase we should phase one.
Yeah. But yeah, I think out of the Phase One movies, definitely the first Thor movie is the one that I tend to like the most. All the other ones, like I like them, but the unless I'm doing like a full MCU watch through, like I'm probably not gonna go back and watch those very often, if at all.
I'll probably watch like Captain America. That's really about it.
Yeah,
Um,
that one was pretty good. I don't know, I just like the old timey kind of setting in general, you know?
yeah, yeah. No, it's good. I like the whole like vibe of it too, and I like that it
Mhm.
doesn't. It kind of really doesn't end with him being back. It kind of ends ambiguously, which I kind of liked
Hmm, for sure.
because they show
Um,
him on. They show him like they find him in the ice, but we never actually see him get thawed out in that movie,
mhm,
which I thought was an interesting way of handling it.
yeah. So let's see, with the two Iron Man movies, Thor, Captain
Hulk.
America, Hulk, which I barely
Um,
remember anything from the Hulk movie.
I just remember he fought the Abomination, and they did actually
Yeah,
get the guy who played the Abomination to come back for his brief scene in She-Hulk, which I thought was kind of fun.
yeah.
Um, but other than that, like,
I liked how he was just like a nice guy in that. Like he's just like, yeah, no, I've kind of moved on from that whole thing. I'm just a
yeah,
guy now.
yeah, it was just so weird.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, that movie's not the best. The Incredible Hulk.
Yeah.
Um, so Avengers ended off Phase One. I think for me personally, like the reason why I just don't really care for that movie is the fact that I think I didn't see it when it came out. I only saw it like a couple years afterwards, and I think I just like the hype was too big. So when I watched it, I was like, it's fine, but I didn't see what made it like. People acted like it was the greatest movie ever made.
I mean, I enjoyed it for what it was. The Avengers, the first Avengers film, is one of only two MCU movies I've seen in theaters, unless you count Deadpool and Wolverine. um, and at that point, I hadn't, I was aware of the MCU and like how it was like building up steam and getting a lot of traction at the time, but I only went because a friend of mine wanted to go see it and didn't want to go alone, so it
Mm,
just happened to, fall into my lap to go see it. And I mean, I enjoyed it for what it was. Like, I wasn't super invested, so I just kind of went along for the ride. And um, I liked Loki as a villain.
mm.
Um, but after that, it was just kind of like, yeah, okay, that was a fun movie, and I didn't actually watch it again until I was going through my like full watch through of MCU.
Hmm.
Um, I'm
I
gonna
think
pull
for
up a
me,
list of movies.
I think for me, my problem with it was is I'd came into it after I'd already seen a bunch of Phase Two movies. Um, Everyone was hyping it up like
Mhm.
it was the greatest thing ever, and then I sat down and watched it, and I was just kind of like, it's okay. Like I didn't see what made it any better than like I'd watched Captain America, I'd watched Thor before I'd watched the first Iron Man before I watched um the Avengers, honestly.
Mhm.
I thought the movie was kind of disjointed. I'm not gonna lie, like it kind of is all over the place.
It definitely is, yeah. And they kind of use that as like the central like hub for like tons of stuff that happened later on. Kind of is like for instance, when I just like before I decided to go back and watch all the MCU movies, I was just like, you know what, I want to watch the new Spider-Man when all those Spider-Man, the three Spider-Man film. Um, when that came out, I was like, okay, I should watch the new Spider-Man movies because I want to watch that one, bringing back all the old ones.
Mhm.
And I went to go watch Homecoming, and it started off with like the ruined city. And I didn't realize at the time that this was like after the first Avengers movie, so I could have kept watching. But like, it starts off with just the city in ruins, and they're finding technology and stuff like that. And I was so confused that I was like, well, fuck, I guess I have to watch the whole MCU before I can watch this.
That's the problem with these movies is like early on they were all pretty standalone, but like the farther you get in, they're so unapproachable now, like from like for a casual person.
For sure.
Like because like after Avengers 1, then we get into like phase 2. And phase 2 had some pretty interesting films. Like I know Iron Man 3 was a big one when it came out.
Hmm.
I remember Iron Man 3. I remember Thor the Dark World, my first MCU film. That movie is I understand why people don't like it, but I didn't think it was the worst thing ever.
Yeah, there's definitely
Um
worse ones for sure. Um,
uh
remember
Cap Captain
because that
America the
one was the
Winter
one with like the elves or whatever, right? It was like
yeah.
blue elves or something. I don't remember exactly. I know it was
It
like by the end, it was like, oh, the big thing that they were after was actually an Infinity Stone.
yeah, that was kind of like the whole like thing with phase 2 was like gathering the Infinity Stones kind of around.
Hmm.
Or well not
Yeah,
gathering them, just kind of like bringing them into prominence.
yeah,
Cuz
calling attention to them.
yeah, cuz then like after that there was Winter Soldier. Like Winter Soldier, there was a lot of plot dump in that was like probably the most plot heavy film yet, I'd say.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not crazy about I'm not like the biggest Captain America fan anyway. Um, I like the first one, I think more because of the setting and like the time period it is set in. But like everything after that, like I know I said like I like the fish out of water stuff, but like that's like a different kind of fish out of water, and it just kind of feels weird.
I thought it was a well put together film. It was definitely the most serious film I think so far in the MCU.
Mm.
There was a lot of plot, like getting you ready for stuff that's coming up in that movie.
It's like they were just pushing the Hydra thing too much, and it's still even now like they're still pushing the Hydra stuff, even though like um like that particular iteration of Captain America is done. Like that, even in the new stuff, you still see Hydra getting around. Like it's just
Yeah.
getting to a point, you know.
Um, thinking on it now, like phase. So like still in phase 2, the big introductions this phase because like we had like the recurring films. Hulk didn't get another movie. He never will get another movie as far as I can tell. But
Mhm. The closest thing was She-Hulk, and that wasn't even him. Maybe he just featured in
yeah.
it.
Well, I think Universal still technically has the rights to it, or there's some weird shit there.
Mhm.
Um, so then we had the newcomers. We had Guardians of the Galaxy, which was that was like the one everyone thought was gonna bomb, and it ended up being probably one of the biggest hits out of the entire thing.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um,
I really enjoyed the Guardians movie, the first one.
I like the first one and the second one. I have still haven't seen the third one. Um, I just like
Um,
James. I like James Gunn's directing style. Like he's
mhm.
got a cool vision, which is why I'm really
Yeah,
excited for the upcoming DC stuff because he's basically running all the DC movies now.
yeah. Um,
Um, oh, and then Ant Man. Ant Man was the other newcomer. I really liked Ant
it,
Man.
that movie was one of the few MCU movies that I saw before I actually went through and watched them all. And that one was just by chance. I was actually on a cruise and they were doing a showing of it in like the lobby of the ship I was on. I had nothing else going on, so I sat and watched it, and I really enjoyed it. But I also like Paul Rudd as an actor. I think he's just a
Yeah,
funny guy.
I'm a Friends fan, like I said. So like he was on the show for a good while. So I like Paul Rudd, and I like the whole idea of that. Like I like that they didn't do Hank Pym as the main guy. They did Scott Lang, who's just a more interesting character, honestly.
Mhm.
But I
And
still
like
had
I
Hank
wasn't
Pym
expecting
there.
them to just like throw him into the like Avengers compound and just be like, oh yeah, he's just fighting Avengers just because fuck it.
I love that scene where he just pops up. He's like, "Hey, I'm Ant Man," and he just fucking fucks up the Falcon and then fucks off after that, which was pretty good.
I just love that the first Ant-Man movie is more like heist movie than superhero movie.
Well, the first Ant Man apparently started production way back, like because apparently Edgar Wright was originally doing it, and then he was off the project, and they got Peyton Reed to finish it.
Mhm.
So it had a bit of a tumultuous development. I just thought it was funny too. Like it had a really good plot and like everything.
Mhm.
Was there any other movies in Phase Two, or were those the main ones?
Well, between Guardians and Ant-Man, there was the second Avengers movie, Age of Ultron.
Oh yeah, that came out. Oh yeah, yeah, you're right. I forgot. For some reason, I thought Iron Man 3 was an Avengers movie. I mean, it basically is, but
That's kind of how I feel about Civil War. Like I feel like that's more an
but
Avengers movie than a
yeah,
Captain
that
America movie.
I mean, yeah, yes, Captain America, not Iron Man. That's what I meant. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, I forgot Age of Ultron was before Ant Man. Oh yeah, because Ant Man was like was originally supposed to be like the first film of Phase Three, but then they squeezed it right into Phase Two.
I feel like they
Um,
did a similar thing with one of the Spider-Man movies later on.
they might have honestly. Um, Age of Ultron. People give that movie shit. I actually think I like it more than the first Avengers. That's probably a hot take, but I'm gonna make that one.
Well, I liked it because it threw Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch into the
Oh yeah, it did, and then they had to kill Quicksilver off because Fox owned him.
yeah. Well, I actually thought it was really funny because I when I was going through the X-Men movies earlier this year, I actually found out that apparently like in was it Days of Future Past. Well, they had to do like a prison break to get Magneto out of jail because they needed his help with some stuff. And originally, apparently, they were going to have Juggernaut help them break him out, but then like last minute they changed it because they heard that the MCU was doing stuff with Quicksilver, so they said, "Fuck that, we're going to do Quicksilver first." So they brought him in.
Yeah, well, they technically own the rights to him because of the contract they signed. So they basically had to screwed Disney out of it until Disney bought 20th Century Fox. But
Hmm.
yeah, that is a very interesting way they did that. Um, I do get the fact that the framing of Age of Ultron is kind of predictable. Like they were basically just kind of they needed a reason to do Civil War.
Hmm.
Um,
And like I found it really interesting that they basically turned Scarlet Witch into like the MCU's Dark Phoenix.
well, because they couldn't do Dark Phoenix.
Well, yet at least, but
True.
I just found it interesting that that was like kind of the direction they went with it. Like,
Yeah.
because like she started out like kind of against them in Age of Ultron, and then she came around, and then I think she was actually the main um like the main like issue that was caused that made Civil War happen in the first place. Like her power went out of control and somebody got hurt, and like that was why they tried to like the government tried to put more control over the Avengers, and that was what caused the split in the first place.
I think it was a mix of that and Bucky. I think Bucky was part of it as well.
Probably. Um,
Um, yeah, Age of Ultron though, I did not hate that movie. I like a lot of people did. I thought it was very entertaining.
I mean, it's not my favorite. Like, I don't know. I'm not crazy about like the whole AI thing.
Yeah.
Or I guess it depends on how it's done. Because there are other stuff that I do like that with, but um,
Oh,
I
I
know
forgot.
I just didn't care for Ultron.
That's the movie that tried to make make Scarlett Johansson in the Hulk a thing. Forgot about that.
Oh yeah, that's right. And they kept
That
like doing the will they won't they thing afterwards too.
that was a weird choice. They dropped that eventually because
Yeah,
ooh, that was interesting. That's all I'll say.
yeah, no kidding.
Is that the movie too where we find out Hawkeye's family gets first introduced, or was that?
I think so.
Yeah, I think his family gets first introduced in Age of Ultron because that ends with them all kind of splitting off. Like he basically retires. Hulk goes to Fiji. Um,
Hmm.
then they go their separate ways at the end.
Yeah. But yeah, I liked Civil War for what it was. It was a fun movie, and it introduced Spider-Man into the MCU.
Oh yeah, that was the big reveal. Like Tom Holland Spider Man. Like because they made the
Hmm.
deal with Sony. They almost ruined the deal with Sony because they couldn't help themselves.
Mhm.
That's one of my favorite Sony moments ever. Like when they went to renegotiate the contract, they tried to like get more money out of Sony for Spider-Man to
Mhm.
license Spider-Man into the MCU. And so Sony's response was, "Okay, fine, we're going to take our toys and go somewhere else." And basically, Disney was like, "Fuck, um, come back, please."
Never mind. Original deal is fine. We'll be fine.
Well, actually, Disney ended up getting not Disney. Sony ended up getting more because I think they got exclusive game rights too. Because that's why Spider-Man's PlayStation only.
That makes sense.
But yeah, I remember that. Like Disney tried to throw their weight around, and then Sony was like, "No, we'll just take our toys and leave. It doesn't matter if we make shitty films."
Mhm.
Yeah, that was an interesting. There was going to be a Tom Holland non MCU movie at one point because of that, but then they obviously Disney gave in real fast.
Oh, I'm sure. But yeah, after Civil War, we had the first Doctor Strange movie, which
Very
I enjoyed that
fantastical
one quite a
movie.
bit. Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. It's one of those movies where I kind of went into it and I was kind of like, this was around the point of like the Marvel movies where I was like, I have no idea who this guy is, so I'm just kind of going into it.
Hmm.
Um,
I thought it worked
Doc,
really well for what it was, though.
no, it was a good movie. I liked the fantastical elements of it. I thought the acting was very well done, and it set up another. It was another Infinity Stone setup.
Hmm.
What was after that? Was it Thor the Dark
Uh,
Thor Ragnarok after that, or
Guardians 2 was
oh
next.
Guardians 2 was a very fun movie.
Yeah, because that was the one with um
Ego the Living
Star.
Planet.
Yeah, the dad guy. I forget his character. What the hell is Chris Pratt's character's name?
Oh, Star Lord.
Yeah, well, yeah, I meant like his actual name, but
Oh,
I don't remember.
good question. I don't remember. Um, yeah, uh, that's actually another fun one because I believe actually Disney did not realize that Fox technically owned the rights to Ego the Living Planet.
Oh yeah.
And then they had to like make a deal with Fox. I think that they gave Fox more creative control over one of the X-Men characters that they didn't have the rights to, and then they gave Disney the rights to use Ego. So it was kind of one of those deal for a deal things before they just bought Fox entirely.
Mhm. Yeah, the whole like I know we've talked about it a bit already, but the whole like debacle with the film rights for different Marvel superheroes stuff like that is so fucking out there and wild. Like it's so all over the place, literally.
It's it's one of the things that DC did right was when DC sold themselves off like way back in like the 70s, I think it was, and ended up under Time Warner. They've always been basically under a big parent company, so they've never actually had to suffer from going bankrupt. So they never lost anything like that.
Yeah. But yeah, all told, I think Guardians 2 was definitely one of the stronger movies. I enjoyed it a lot. It kind of really started pushing the whole Star Lord and Gamora thing, which
Which the end,
where that ends up later is really funny.
I just find it funny. Like Guardians 2 ends on such a fucking like heartbreaking but like heartwarming note, like with the funeral scene at the end. But
Mhm.
all of that gets fucking thrown away when you get to Infinity War because Infinity War fucking just hits all over that ending.
Well, Infinity War and Endgame kind of just like if it had ended there, it would have been perfect. But because they continued, it kind of like ruined a lot of things.
Yeah, unfortunately. Spider-Man Homecoming though, like that was another big movie during this period.
Hmm. And I gotta say, I love seeing Michael Keaton in another superhero movie as a villain this time, which is really fun.
Well, let's be real here. 89 Batman was basically a villain. He fucking kills people left and right in that movie.
Yeah, that's true. But
Like I love Batman
that's
89, but
still like my
he
favorite Batman movie, though.
it's a great film, but he is a terrible Batman. Not Keaton acting, just the Batman he's playing is a terrible Batman because he just straight
Hmm.
up kills people left and right in that movie.
Well, it was a Tim Burton film, so I guess you can't be too surprised that it was unnecessarily dark.
Yeah, I love that movie, but ooh, it's so fucking hilarious. looking at it
I
in
think that was like one
hindsight.
of the first. I think that was like one of the first like big superhero movies I saw
It was
like as a
the
kid.
one. It was one of the first really successful super. Well, no, actually, the first really successful superhero movie was Superman, the Richard Donner movie with Christopher Reeve.
Hmm.
That was like the first like really successful one, but like Batman's like the one everyone thinks of.
I think between those and like the animated universe for
Oh yeah,
DC are like the big reasons why I ended up more DC than Marvel.
well, the DC animated universe alone kind of shaped a lot of people because other than like Spider-Man and X-Men, most of Marvel's animated stuff wasn't particularly interesting at the time,
Hmm. Yeah,
or at
that's for
least
sure.
I don't remember it. um,
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, that was pretty much it. It was Spider-Man and X-Men. That was what kind of carried the animated stuff for Marvel.
well, you didn't like Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends?
I didn't watch that, so
Yeah, I didn't either. It's just one that always pops into my head for some reason.
I watched
Um,
Radioactive Spider Blood.
fucking love that. Shocker! We'll talk about the animated stuff at another time, like because we're gonna obviously talk DC animated universe at some point.
Oh, for sure. We got to do an episode just on Static Shock alone. Got to
Yeah,
rewatch a bunch of that. I
it
love that
starts
show.
it starts off as a world within a world where they're reading Batman comics, and then Batman shows up later. It's great. It's like this makes
Mhm.
sense.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Back to
um,
MCU though, like Spider-Man was a very good movie. I like Tom Holland as Spider-Man. I know some people don't, um, because a lot of
if I'm
people
being
prefer.
honest, this is my least favorite Spider-Man, like iteration of Spider-Man.
That's fair. He's definitely he's the most fitting of the like the teenage Spider-Man like trope because as much as I love Tobey Maguire like as Spider-Man, those high school scenes are so fucking hilarious to watch now because it's like you look at the kids in the school and there's like a 40-year-old woman chilling in the background and it's like yeah, that's definitely a teenager right there.
Well, wasn't Tobey Maguire like our age, like now
He
when
was
he did
not
that
yeah.
movie?
Yeah, he was not in his like teens at that point. Like
I
nobody
mean,
in
he had a
those.
young face, but still, like it was pretty obvious that he wasn't a teenager.
You look at all of the students at that high school and you're like these are all like 30-year olds like chilling around. There's just this one scene of like this woman in the background like doing like a fist bump and it's like that is a 40-year-old woman, guys. You're not hiding anybody.
I just love that Flash Thomas from that movie is going to be Crocodile in the live action One Piece.
Yeah, that's
Like that's
fun.
hilarious. It is
uh,
Tom. Is it Flash Thompson or Thomas?
Flash Thompson, I think.
That's what I thought. All right, yeah.
The
Whoops.
bully. He was also Venom at one point.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, just all. I mean, I don't hate any of the new Spider-Man movies, but I just feel like this iteration of Spider-Man just doesn't do it for me the way the other two do.
Well, I will say I prefer one of the reasons why I fell out of reading Spider-Man comics is because I hate the fact that Marvel won't let him grow up.
Mhm.
Um, like that's just
Well,
been
yeah,
a problem.
because he got blipped, so he didn't get to age with everybody else.
Well, he made a deal with the devil to get rid of his marriage to save his like 90-year-old grand like aunt who's gonna die soon anyways. It's like I have a lot of problems with One More Day. That's all I will say.
That's
Um,
fair. And I'm not a huge fan of this iteration of MJ either. Like,
well, it's not Mary Jane. It's another character. They just use MJ because it's an appealing name for fans.
they just did MJ just to say, oh look, we got MJ, but
They
it's
th-
I
they
don't know.
they threw the Mary Jane fans a bone, but it's not the same character.
Yeah, not even close.
I do like random like young Aunt May though because I just find that as a funny joke.
Yeah, just the
Whenever
whole
she
thing with
appears,
Happy.
I just like when Robert Downey Jr. shows up. He's like, "You're shockingly young aunt." It's like attractive aunt. It's like, well, especially because Aunt May's always been like a fucking fossil in the fucking comics. So it's been like it's just really funny in like hindsight. It's like, oh, this is a much younger woman.
It's funny because if Spider-Man ever gets rebooted again, she's just gonna be his younger sister or something. Like she just keeps getting younger
Probably.
and younger.
I don't even remember Aunt May in the Garfield films, but I barely remember the Garfield films as it is.
I mean, I like the Amazing Spider-Man movies.
I like the
Honestly, I like
first one. The second one,
yeah. I don't know. I liked the whole like I just felt like a more grounded version of Spider-Man.
he
He
was
was like an angry kid for the things that he went through, and he had to kind of go through the motions and figure
I'll
himself out.
the way I always saw it was Tobey Maguire was a better Peter Parker. Andrew Garfield was a better Spider-Man.
Hmm. That's fair.
Tom Holland is a good mix of both for what he
That's
does.
fair. That's fair. I think maybe that's the biggest thing is that I feel like Tom Holland Spider-Man is just too like confused high school kid.
Well,
Like they just kind of like leaned way too hard into that for 3 full movies.
he's very much what Spider-Man started out as, which I think is what they were going for.
Hmm.
Problem is when the Sam Raimi films, then the Garfield films came out, Spider-Man was already married. Well, when the Sam Raimi films came out, he was definitely married. When the Garfield films came out, not so much. But we knew he was married at one point. So we
Hmm.
were used to like adult Spider-Man by then. So like when they kind of reverted back to young Spider-Man, it was a little jarring.
Hmm.
Uh, that being said, though, I liked Homecoming, even though like I think they leaned a bit too hard on Robert Downey Jr. in that movie at times.
Yeah, I kind of get what they were going for though, because I don't know how much they had planned at that point, like as far as like where it was going to go with Endgame and everything. But I mean, you could definitely see like they were building up for Tony Stark to pass the torch to him at some point in the future, and that's kind of like where all that was
Well,
going.
they've always had a relationship in the comics, so it made sense.
Hmm.
Um, other than that, like we had Ant-Man and the Wasp, which is a movie a lot of people hate, but I really like.
Hmm.
Mostly just because it's more
Yeah.
Paul Rudd being a freaking goofball the entire movie.
Um. Maybe we skipped over a couple.
There was a lot in Phase 3.
Yeah, Phase 3 is definitely the biggest out of the first three. Um. And then after that, there was just so many different friggin'. Oh, this list doesn't even include the series.
Well, I don't remember the TV series either, so
Yeah, well, I mean, you pretty much, with the exception of Spider-Man and Deadpool, you pretty much stopped after Endgame, right?
yeah, because I just could not care anymore.
That's fair.
I
I
mean,
can't blame you.
I was going through superhero burnout by that point as it was. Mostly because all
Hmm.
the DC movies just weren't doing it for me at the time, and I'm a bigger DC fan, so I was just kind of like, I'm done with superheroes, and I moved on for a bit.
Yeah. Thor Ragnarok, though, I really liked that one.
That is a good movie. That is a very, I think, in hindsight, underappreciated movie for just how good it is.
Like I feel like that was the kind of tone that people were hoping for with Love and Thunder.
Well, because it was the same
Because like
director.
yeah, well, Ragnarok definitely was a like obviously it had its fun moments and stuff, but it was definitely a bleaker film.
Well, yeah,
Um,
because it was like Thor basically gets like utterly wrecked, and he's got to fucking rebuild, and it's just such a fun story going on.
mhm.
And we also get the Hulk, which is hilarious because they go through that entire build up, and then he gets fucking owned by Thanos at the start of Infinity War. So it's like, damn.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure it ends like isn't that like the post credit scene of that movie? Like pretty much Thanos boarding them in their spaceship.
I believe so, which is crazy because there was like 4 movies in between that and Endgame and Infinity War.
Yeah. And then Black Panther, which was like
Right, right. That was a really good movie, but I for some reason I always forget about it.
it was one of those ones that was I feel like it was like a last minute introduction or a last minute addition. Because
Yeah,
it was literally the last movie before Infinity War, so it was kind of like They just wanted to squeeze him in there just so he could be involved in all of that.
Well, Captain Marvel was in there too, I believe, right?
Captain Marvel was between Infinity War and Endgame.
Right. Yeah, yeah, because it was like the last or one of the last. Oh yeah, but yeah, I forget. I always forget about this because I forgot they split them. But yeah, I
Yeah,
really
because between Infinity War and Endgame, we had Ant-Man and Wasp and Captain Marvel.
right. Oh yeah, because like the big whole deal was like they were hyping up Captain Marvel as their first female lead, and then it ended up getting up. They ended up putting Ant-Man and the Wasp out first, which was the actual first female lead of a Marvel movie.
Mm-hmm. I find it really funny looking at this list because apparently Captain Marvel came out like a month and a half before Endgame.
It did because the post credit scene for Ant-Man and the Wasp is like they're up on the roof and they get snapped.
Mm-hmm.
Because I
Yeah, and
remember,
then freaking Paul Rudd is just stuck in the thing.
yeah, which fucking that scene drove me nuts because I was like, God damn it, now we have to wait.
Yep.
Um, I don't remember what Captain Marvel's was because I barely remember that movie. But
I think the end of that was just it was what the hell? Why am I blanking on Sam Jackson's?
oh,
Uh,
Nick Fury.
yeah, Nick Fury. I think it was him like sending out the signal as he's being blipped, like the summon signal for Captain
Right,
Marvel.
right, right. Yep.
And I will say, I know, like you have mixed feelings on the Captain Marvel film, but I love the explanation for how Nick Fury lost his eye. I found
Yeah,
that
that
incredibly funny.
there was moments in it that I liked. I just didn't think the movie itself was very. I think it might just be I'm not a big fan of Brie Larson. That might be it, honestly.
That's fair. Was it Scott Pilgrim? Is that what made you not like her?
No, she's so minor in that movie that I don't care. It's more I don't know. I really don't know. I think actually the Captain Marvel made me kind of not like her. I don't know.
That's fair.
I just didn't like that movie
Um,
for whatever reason.
but maybe we should kind of talk about Infinity War and Endgame as like a duo.
That's what I was thinking because they kind of work together.
I would,
Because
to the point where it feels weird that they didn't happen back to back.
well, I think they were supposed to, and then they realized money.
Yeah, that's fair. Um, no, I knew like a lot of stuff going in, not like a ton of stuff, but I knew that there was stuff going into it. Like I knew that that Iron Man was gonna die by the end of it. But for some reason I thought that he was gonna get blipped with everybody else and then he didn't. And then I was like, oh, okay, so he's gonna like die permanently by the end of Endgame.
Yeah, the people who got blipped kind of surprised me. Like I was actually amazed they blipped Spider-Man, to be honest.
Yeah. But I mean that also kind of like with Tony Stark and Peter Parker's relationship, it makes sense that that would
It did.
happen, and then he would like he would feel all the guilt from it because he had that relationship with him and he was building him up and everything, um and then he actually settled down with uh the woman with the dumbest sounding name ever.
Oh, Pepper Potts.
Yeah, that's just dumbest fucking name ever. Like I don't know who the hell thought that was a good idea, but that is a stupid fucking name. And
Whichever
every
one.
time every time I heard it, it just made me like angry.
So it's just part of like superhero love interest with alliterative names.
Alliterative names are all fine and good. I have no problem with that. Like Bruce Banner makes sense. Peter Parker makes sense. Pepper Potts. What fucking parent would
The
name
set,
their child Pepper Potts?
I don't know. It was like the '60s.
Their parents must have been on LSD or something because that's fucking ridiculous.
that that's one of my. Let me see here. I'm legitimately curious. When how old is Iron Man? When was Iron Man first created? 62. So it was around the '60s.
So it was around the same time that Spider-Man and X-Men came around.
Well, yeah, because Marvel's a people don't realize Marvel's is a younger company than DC. DC's been around since the fucking 30s.
Mm-hmm.
Superman's old.
Yeah. Um. But yeah, I was trying to think. Yeah, because I loved what they did with Hawkeye in Endgame, like how like his entire family got blipped, and then
Yeah,
he
so he
just kind of
becomes a fucking
became like a
anti-hero.
hired killer.
Yeah.
Yeah, which
Yeah,
is
that
it was
was a
really funny too because wasn't he like the Ronin or something, and that like
something
became like
like
a
that.
big thing later on.
That the got Infinity War, I saw that in twice in theaters because I saw it once. It was the funniest thing. I saw it on my own, and then Alex wanted to see it, so we went. I went and saw it like the next day again.
Hmm.
Um, and I had warned her beforehand. I was like, it's got the cliffhanger is rough, and she was like, I still want to see it. I'm like, okay. And then she was all pissed off after. She's like, that fucking sucked. Why that cliffhanger was stupid. And I'm just like, don't worry,
Hmm.
Alex. We gotta wait for the next part. She's like, I didn't like it. It sucked. And she's like, they killed the Guardians. Because Alex really
Was it
like,
like one of the only ones was left was like Rocket, right?
yeah, he was the last one because they killed Groot. They killed Peter Quill. That's his goddamn name.
Peter
Um,
Quill. Yep.
Gamora got thrown off the ledge. Um,
Yep.
so
Nebula was still around, right?
yeah, I don't remember if she got flipped or not. No, I think she was still around because I think it was her and Rocket were in Endgame.
Hmm. I do like that she kind of became like the like impromptu replacement for Gamora in the Guardians.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the one thing that kind of annoyed me about Infinity War. It kind of ignores the ending of Guardians 2. Because Guardians 2 had
Hmm.
like all these different characters and this whole like new ship and plot thing. And then when they show up in Infinity War, they're still on the old ship with the old crew. And I'm just like, oh yeah, they must have forgot about that.
Hmm. I
Well,
thought it
also
was really
different.
weird that um like the whole concept of like Peter Quill's heritage and stuff with the planet Ego, whatever. Like it didn't make any sense to me. Like the whole concept behind that. It's like, oh, like you're part God, but only while I'm alive. What?
Comics.
It doesn't make any sense. So
Comics
okay,
don't make any
so who,
sense.
so who is your dad and where is he? Because if he's still like if you still have your power, he must be alive.
I
Like,
mean,
you know what I
this is
mean?
comic book. I mean, in the Green Lantern universe, there's a literal Green Lantern that's a planet. So
Yeah, I don't know. It's just
Co-
like sometimes they do things like that, and I'm just like, that doesn't make any fucking sense. It's like they
look,
were just like literally like grasping at straws to come up with a reason for him not to have godly powers.
yeah, well, yeah, but comics don't make sense in general. So
Which like I don't know. I guess it makes sense with them not wanting him to have powers because the whole Guardians thing is that they're like a ragtag group that just kind of like perseveres through guts and whatnot. But like, I mean, that you have multiple other characters with godlike powers, so like adding another one wouldn't really be that big a deal.
yeah, well, you know what they say in
I mean, you got
comics:
yeah. I
no
was
one
just saying, like you
stays.
got like Scarlet Witch who's powerful enough to destroy Infinity Stones.
Yeah,
You
but
know,
she doesn't. But she doesn't.
but she tried to. Well, she did kill Vision,
Yeah, yeah,
which
she did.
which spawned a whole bunch of shit later on.
Yeah,
But
God, Infinity War though, like the entire build up to Infinity War, and then just like the fucking snap at the end. I always remember the when they think they've won, and he's like, "You should have aimed for the head."
mhm.
Snap.
Which I mean, duh. Always aim for the head. What are you doing? Um, I love how Endgame starts too, where they just track down Thanos and he's like half dead already. And they kill him at the very beginning of the movie. And when I saw that, I was like, what the fuck? Like I was not expecting that at all.
Well, the opening stinger for Endgame is brutal because it's literally it's Hawkeye chilling with his family, and then he turns his back for 1 second, and they're all gone.
Hmm.
It's like
Yeah.
it's like oh yeah, this is where we're starting. Great,
Yeah, no kidding.
but then of course
Then
like the hero of that movie is the rat in the van,
the rat in the van.
the one that lets Paul Rudd out.
Oh, right, yeah. That's
That is the
right.
hero. That is the true hero of that movie because nothing would have happened otherwise.
Yeah. Although, like with like some of the stuff that happens later on in like the later phases, it's almost like bringing everybody back kind of fucked everything up. Like
Well,
everyone had already kind of like adjusted and like the world was doing better, and then everybody came back and everything went back to chaos.
well, I mean, let's be real. When you think about it, Thanos wasn't exactly wrong.
True.
It was an extreme way of doing it, but it did kind of make sense.
Yeah, it's true.
It's better than his comic thing. In the comics, he literally wanted to fuck death. That was his entire like thing.
I thought that was Deadpool's thing.
Deadpool, it's different with him.
The weird
Him,
love triangle.
him, it's a joke. Like Thanos literally well, death is a character in comics in Marvel, and
Hmm.
Thanos literally wanted to fuck her. Like that was his entire thing.
Jesus.
Comics are weird.
Yeah, that's for sure.
But yeah, the end game. God, that opening is hard, especially because like when I love when Paul Rudd shows up to like the Avengers and he's like, "Hey, I'm still alive," and they're like, "Holy fuck, what do we do?"
Yeah, right. Yeah, like for him, it had only been like a day or something, even though it had been 5 years.
Yeah, because he was in the quantum space or whatever, the mini world.
Like imagine being Ant-Man in that situation, and you come out and your daughter's like grown.
Yeah, like a teenager now,
Like
and you're just like, "What?"
like that must be kind of fucked.
Well, that's one of the most heartbreaking scenes is when he's looking over the wall of all the people who disappeared, and he doesn't find her name, and then he finds her, and it's like it's a very sweet scene, but it's also like, damn, that's rough.
Yeah, yeah. I will say there's a lot of that kind of stuff that like really hits different being a parent.
Yeah. Well, another thing too is like you get to like the scenes with Iron Man, and he's just so done with everything. Like he doesn't want any part of it. Like he's like, nope,
Yeah,
I'm happy now. I don't bother me.
yeah, yeah. I don't blame him either. Like it makes total sense.
Well, honestly, that whole thing just makes what happens at the end of the film even more tragic.
Mhm. No kidding.
What'd you think of Banner Hulk like merged?
Well, the Smart Hulk.
Yeah, that was a thing in the comics too until he inevitably went crazy again. But it was
It's about
interesting.
right.
It
I
was a
mean,
different take on it.
I thought it was kind of cool, but it's like you couldn't have done that sooner, dude.
Um, well, they did it in the
Maybe.
comics, and it wasn't particularly popular from what I remember, so that's why they
Well,
reverted it back.
I meant in the MCU itself. Like they do this whole thing where oh, I'm so afraid of the Hulk and this and that, and then like he was the Hulk for like 2 years straight, and then um,
Thanos scared him
I
away.
yeah, well maybe that was what caused it. Maybe it's because Thanos
Well,
like
he
just
implies
made
that
Hulk
they
his bitch, and
he
then
implied that in the 5 years they had time to work out their differences.
I guess so. I mean, they had longer than that beforehand, but whatever.
Well, things were happening then. Like not a whole lot was happening in that 5 year span.
True. Yeah, it's funny how after the Thanos snap, like, all the villainry just kind of stops.
Well, half of them got wiped out.
True. But I mean, I feel like the still fair amount of them left.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the whole implication was the world was just so fucking decimated that they had to kind of rebuild, so they didn't have
Mhm.
time for that.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, that's still my favorite line is when Paul Rudd finally gets out and he's just like, "What the hell happened here?"
Mhm.
Yeah,
But
that whole segment too of trying to gather the Infinity Stones is pretty dark.
what from the different time periods?
Yeah, like especially the scene with Black Widow and Hawkeye, where she basically tricks him into letting her kill herself to get the stone.
Yeah, that was pretty dark. And then that leads to more stuff later on
Yeah, yeah.
with the Black Widow movie.
Hmm.
Um but yeah, I mean, since you didn't really watch much after Endgame. I don't know. I mean, I guess we could talk a little bit about the Spider-Man movies.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'd like to talk about No Way Home just because that movie is amazing.
Mhm. I will
It
say,
also,
like, I'll briefly touch on Far From Home. I did really like that we finally got Mysterio in a Spider-Man movie.
yeah, and Jake Gyllenhaal really fucking nailed that role.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting, like, I mean, I obviously, like, with the general, like, um like general knowledge about Spider-Man and Spider-Man villains and stuff like that. Like, I knew Mysterio was supposed to be a villain. So when he shows up at, like, towards the beginning of the film and he's like being portrayed as a good guy, I was really interested and confused by that. And then, like, he hands over, like, the like fancy, like, tech glasses, whatever, the smart glasses, whatever the fuck they were. And then all of a sudden he's like, haha, my master plan succeeded. I tricked this
Yeah,
child into giving me his toys.
yeah. No, that was a good, solid film. It's weirdly forgettable though. I feel like because it's like in between the two. Um, it's in between the two other Spider-Man films that are more recognizable.
Hmm.
It also kind of just had a weird spot in the uh, the MCU in general.
Yeah. Especially because they just kind of shoehorned it at the end of Phase 3. Like, you'd think Endgame would be the last movie, but it wasn't. Far From Home was.
Yeah, and then No Way Home was pretty soon after that, so there wasn't even a huge gap between the two.
Um, yeah, it was about the midway point between in Phase 4. Although, like I said, this list doesn't include the series. So if you include the series, it was actually pretty deep in. Um,
True.
but
I will
I
say
liked.
though, like, oh,
Oh,
go
go
on.
on.
I forgot what I was gonna say.
I was gonna say, like, I really like the way that No Way Home handled it with having Doctor Strange as, like, the main focal point of
Oh yeah,
that.
that he kind of causes the dimension fuckery that leads to all the different worlds kind of combining.
Mm. I love how it's just like, oh yeah, I got a spell for that. Don't worry about it. And he just keeps adding more factors into it. He's like, you're making this worse, bro. You're making it much more possible for this to fuck up. Keep it simple, man. Keep it simple.
Yeah, which he fails to do multiple times, which is
Yep.
hilarious.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, I don't know. It's just bringing back the old Spider-Man was just such a smart, and not even just that. Bringing back all the old villains,
The
like,
villains
that was
alone.
such a amazingly well done idea.
So when I'm thinking about it,
Especially
like
Will Dafoe.
Will Dafoe was great just because of the whole fact that he actually got to a not have a costume that was stupid. Because I love that first Spider-Man movie, but goddamn, that Green Goblin suit is dumb on so many levels.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's just so embedded in my memory, like my childhood. Like, I'm kind of okay with it.
I hear that goddamn voice, and all I see is that freaking plastic dollar store mask, and I'm always like, this is dumb, but I kind of love it. To
Yeah,
me, the real star of this movie though was Alfred Molina, Doc Ock.
yeah.
Like the
I mean, that's
digital
the thing.
de aging that
Okay.
they did on him was like it amazes me that how that technology works sometimes, but like he stole the show because he was Spider-Man 2, I still think is one of the best superhero films ever made. And the fact that
Mhm.
he got a redemption arc in this one was just fucking great.
The fact that, like, all of them kind of got redemption arc. I mean, let's be honest. Like, it was really, it was the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man villains that, like, stole the show in that movie.
I'm so bummed that they didn't get because that film was the middle of COVID. They weren't able to get most of the major actors in, but we did get at least the voice of Thomas Hayden Church back as Sandman, which was really cool.
Mhm.
Um, and I like how they kept the whole thing where he was technically not a villain at the end of 3.
Yeah. I was. I'm not gonna lie. I was a little bit disappointed that we didn't get Topher Grace back as Eddie Brock, but
Yeah, I knew that wasn't going to happen though,
yeah, well,
especially with Tom Hardy being the Venom at the time. Like, um, I will say though, like I liked how they actually fixed a lot of issues too with like a lot of the because the Garfield films tend to have a lot of detractors.
Hmm.
I like what they did with Electro. I think they fixed him up a lot too.
Hmm.
Um, I will say though, my one of my favorite parts of this movie is like the scenes where like they're looking for Spider-Man and they see him in the distance. Like, come here, and it runs up and it's like, that's not Tom Holland.
Yep.
And it takes the mask off and it was Andrew Garfield. I was like, okay, that's cool. And
Yeah.
I thought Andrew Garfield really kind of came into his own in this film, like because he was always a good Spider-Man, but I always thought his Peter was kind of awkward. He
Hmm.
I thought he really kind of figured it out in this movie.
Yeah, for sure.
And then when they find Tobey Maguire, like when Tobey Maguire shows up, that was so much nostalgia hit right there. Because like for our generation in particular, like those movies were like the Spider-Man movies for the longest time.
Oh, for sure. And I will say it was like a little bit jarring how like aged both of them looked in this movie.
Yeah, no. Well, it was. I actually kind of like that they implied that they were older, like older
Hmm.
characters, because like he has
Yeah.
the Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. He has the line where he implies that things are going well with his MJ back at in his universe.
Hmm.
So it implies that they fixed everything up after the end of Spider-Man 3 because it was kind of
Yeah.
ambiguous.
And then Andrew Garfield had to go on his whole like heartbreaking like I wasn't able to save my MJ and stuff with Gwen Stacy, but whatever.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because they did
Oh,
do
they just
that.
didn't acknowledge. They just didn't acknowledge that, like, oh yeah, like my MJ wasn't actually an MJ; it was Gwen Stacy. But
Yeah. Um. Yeah, I love the scene where they're talking about like the web cartridges and the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man's like web cartridges. What are those? He's like, what? Yours aren't natural like mine are.
Mhm.
Because
He's
that
like, no,
because
I
I
had
was
like mental block that one time.
yeah, because I always remember that was like the weirdest part about the Raimi films was that he like just had the fucking spider shit in him.
Mhm.
They
But
actually
actually, that like
changed.
really confused me when I was a kid because like I'm pretty sure I had seen like probably a little bit of the cartoon when I was a kid, but like most of my like at least for a while, like the first Spider-Man movie was the thing that was like, oh look, Spider-Man. So like when I started getting into like watching the cartoon and like the couple of comics that I read, I was like, cartridges? The fuck? Like this is stupid.
They actually in one of the arcs right around the time of those movies, they actually there was this really bizarre like arc where he like evolved in like the spider thing and he actually got actual natural shooters at one point.
Hmm.
They retconned it really quick. It was all retconned with One More Day. That was one of the good things One More Day got rid of. Like everything else, not so much. But
Hmm.
yeah, that was a thing in the comics as well for a while. It's just
Yeah,
funny in hindsight.
I did like the kind of like mentor might be a too strong a word, but like kind of like the big brother aspect of like the older Spider-Man with Tom Holland. Tom Holland.
Yeah,
Because like they were both like as we said like they were both older, so they'd both been around the block. They'd both been through a bunch of shit, lots of heartbreak and whatnot. So
an emo phase.
yeah, yeah.
The
Bully
best scene.
McGuire.
Pulling. I love. I unironically love that movie. It's not
Yeah,
good, but I do love that movie.
I've always been a defender of Spider-Man 3. So
Honestly, if they just took Venom out of it and like trimmed down some of the villain bloat, that would be a much better movie.
hmm. um yeah, because they definitely did shoehorn Venom in at the end there.
He wasn't in the original script. He was forced in by a mandate
Hmm.
because Sam Raimi didn't want to do Venom.
Which is
'Cause
weird. Like if they just done Venom in the first place, it would have gone over better, I think. But Sandman was just like a better character
Sandman
overall.
And Goblin Kid were just better villains. Like I thought their arcs were just so much better.
Hmm.
Then just
Um,
Sandman was just a great character in that movie in general.
for sure. So like the way that that all wraps up with like, well, okay, so first of all, we get the whole um them kind of like curing all the villains who apparently have all gone crazy due to some sort of serum or technology, like when you actually like sit and think about it, look at each one of them, like, oh shit, like they are all kind of fucked because either from some sort of serum or some sort of implant, like they all kind of fucked themselves and made themselves crazy.
Yeah,
Um, but they cure that all and they send them all home. So like
but Aunt May's
the
dead.
implications of that, like it kind of makes me want them to like bring back the old, like make a Spider-Man 4 and an Amazing Spider-Man 3 just to
That's
see the effects
that's
because
actually a theory going around. There's like rumors about that might actually happen, but I don't know if it actually will or not.
there's two factors that like really fuck up both of those timelines. Is first of all, you got three separate villain slash antagonists from the Sam Raimi movies, and the fact that you changed each of their fates, like I mean, changing the Green Goblin's fate in general, that changes everything from Spider-Man 2 and 3.
Yes.
So, like, how does that affect like Doc Ock and Sandman, even putting aside their changes from this movie? Like, I don't know, like timelines are weird. And then
That's one of
you
the
also
reasons
got to
why I
factor in. Oh, go on.
it's one of the reasons why I don't think they're going to do more movies because I don't think they want
It
to
would
deal
be
with
way
that.
too complicated. It would be way too
Or
complicated.
they will just ignore it. They won't
Yeah.
even acknowledge it.
And then the other aspect of it is the way that they kind of solved the whole multiversal problem in anyway was by making the spell that everybody forgets Peter Parker in general.
They pulled a one more day, essentially, a less drastic one more day.
Which, because this is a multiversal kind of spell, that means in the other Spider-Man's respective universes, everybody also forgot about Peter Parker.
I so that's one of those things where it's like I don't think they're going to actually touch any of the other universes because they would just be too much work.
Yeah. So it just like it creates this huge mind fuckery going on here with this whole timeline situation, this whole multiple universe
See,
situation, and
the thing about comics is though they can very easily just add in a line being like, "Well, the spell was only connected to this Peter Parker, and that's why the other
but
ones are unaffected."
that defeats the whole purpose of the spell though, because the whole purpose of the spell, because the original spell that brought them all there in the first place is like they were trying to make everybody forget that Peter Parker was Spider-Man, but instead they brought everybody who knew that Peter Parker Spider-Man from all universes into that universe. So the spell that they were doing to undo that was so that everybody forgets who Peter Parker is, so they all get sucked back into their universes. Which I'm having trouble
This
explaining it. It makes
this
sense in my head,
this is
but
why
I'm
there
having trouble
won't
explaining it because it's so fucking wacky.
this is why they won't this is why it won't be acknowledged in a future film basically. If they
Yeah,
do touch Toby Maguire or Andrew Garfield Spider-Man again, they probably are just going to ignore all of that and just be like away with that.
which is
Basically like
probably why they'll never. Those universes are done. I doubt they're ever going to call attention to Toby or Andrew again. Um,
yeah, probably not. It's just one of those things where because comic book logic makes no sense in general, they're just not going to
mhm.
acknowledge it. All we basically ended up with now is Aunt May is dead. No one remembers Peter. Move on,
I
basically.
am interested to see where this goes in the future, though. Like, whenever the fourth MCU Spider-Man movie comes out, like I am really looking forward to seeing how that is handled because now
Mhm.
Spider-Man is just an enigma and nobody knows who it is. Nobody knows who Peter Parker is. Like, how does he? Like, I feel like that's going to be the big turning point that moves him from teenage, adolescent. I'm so confused. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Peter Parker to I kind of have to figure this shit out because I have nothing to lean on.
Yeah, well, especially too because Tom Holland is aging out of that character now, and he's going to have to be the adult Peter pretty soon. So
Mhm. So I am definitely looking forward to seeing where that goes in that respect. Um,
yeah. That being said, though, like I'm looking at because they have like Phase 5 and 6 already planned out, and I'm just like,
Well, to
Is
a
it?
degree.
Yeah, I mean, things can change at any time. They always do.
I'm sure there's other stuff that they haven't announced yet that's in the works as well.
Yeah, because I'm looking at Phase 5 now. Well, apparently we're in Phase 5, I think. Yeah, it started
Yeah.
2023. Um, oh, okay. So Quantumanium and Volume 3 were Phase 5. Okay, yeah. So the next one is the new Captain America movie, which, yeah, I mean, I'm sure that'll be a thing. I'm not really interested, but I'm just kind of over it now. That's kind of my
Mhm.
thing.
Yeah. Well, I
Thunderbolts,
mean,
which I have no idea who these characters are.
Thunderbolts?
That's apparently the
Let me look.
last movie in Phase 5.
MCU Phase 5. Let's see here. Ugh. Films. Thunderbolts. Oh, it doesn't
I
even
have
say. Is
I
it
have
supposed to be
no
a?
idea.
I mean, I don't. I'd have to hold on. Let me see. Let me see here. Because I figure it could either be. Oh, okay. So I think they're just doing like another little they're doing like another group thing because it says that Bucky Barnes is going to be involved in it.
Oh, yeah. I just we're at a point now where they've run out of stuff that I know, so I'm like, I have no idea who these people are.
Oh, and the Black Widow's sister there is also going to be part of it. So it's going to be like another team kind of thing. At
Okay,
first, I was thinking it might be related to the Eternals, but
it's another thing I have no idea what it is. So
it's. Oh wait. Well, apparently Eternals is going to be involved in the new Captain America because the Eternals was like it's this thing that MCU has been doing lately where they kind of been taking what they did with Thor and Norse mythology, and they're saying, "Hey, let's take all these other different mythologies from different areas and turn them into superheroes." And that's what the Eternals. I think Eternals is like Greek Greek stuff.
yeah, it's funny. I'm actually looking at Phase 6 right now, and Phase 6 looks like it's going to be the most like so far what's been announced. It's like the most like, please come back, guys. We really want like we swear this isn't dead because it's
Mhm.
literally it's Fantastic Four, Avengers Doomsday, the next Spider-Man, and then Avengers Secret War. They're finally doing Secret War, and then Blade. They're doing Blade again.
Maybe that keeps getting like thrown up in the air. Like, is that actually happening or not? Like, who
It's
knows?
currently TBD, so
Yeah,
yeah.
we'll
I mean,
see. We'll see. I mean, Wesley Snipes might just fucking come back. Who knows?
is he
Um,
still in jail or did he get out of jail? I don't remember.
I mean, he was in Deadpool and Wolverine. I don't know.
Oh yeah, he's probably out then.
Um,
Um, yeah.
should we
So
touch on that at all, or did you see it?
see, I
Deadpool and
still haven't.
Wolverine.
I still
Oh,
haven't
okay,
seen it. It's one of those
gotcha.
things where I just don't have time to go to the movies. I don't have time to do anything anymore. It's wonderful.
I'm not sure if it's even still playing.
Probably not. It's
'Cause
probably
I
actually. I
know,
already.
I know you can purchase it on Amazon now. Purchase
Oh,
it
can you?
digitally, quote
I might do
unquote,
that.
because we already had that conversation about how buying something digitally isn't actually buying it, but still paying full price.
Well, if you rent it, it's cheaper. You can watch it once,
Yeah,
and then by the time.
yeah, they don't let you rent it right away. You can only buy
True.
it, quote unquote.
Fair enough. um. Yeah, it's kind of. Wow, we've actually gone 2 hours. Crazy. Um.
It's funny. We spent a lot of that time talking about Sony and Fox as opposed to MCU.
Well, because it's kind of related because the whole Marvel put themselves in this situation. They're finally fixing it, but at the same time, it's like, damn, it took a while to get here.
Hmm.
I'm just
No
interested
kidding.
in so DC fucked up their first cinematic universe. And now they're just doing it again. So I'm curious to see how that's gonna go.
I mean, I don't know. Like I just feel like DC works better either animated or when CW does it.
To a degree, some of
Like
those CW shows are kind of rough.
I mean, the only one I like out of the ones I saw, the only one I actively like disliked was Supergirl.
I never watched Supergirl.
I got like I watched the first season and it was like okay, and then like I started the second season, I was like, this is stupid. I'm not watching this. Like I
see
might give it another shot when I actually get around to rewatching CW. And like yeah, I know we just spent 2 hours talking about MCU, and I like MCU, but I still feel like I like the CW like Arrowverse better.
Yeah, Arrow was fine. My problem with Arrow was it just became the Ollie and Felicia show after a while, or Felicity show, whatever it was. Um,
True.
which as a comic fan, that just feels wrong to me on a lot of levels.
See, that's the thing is, I didn't really mess with any of the comics, so I don't have for neither Marvel or DC. So
Well,
I have no background on that. It's just fun
even like
superheroes to me.
even like the DC animated universe, it was always Green Arrow, Black Canary. Like that just is a thing that's always going to be.
That's fair.
So that was
Well,
weird to me.
they went and killed her. So
Yeah, I know. Well, they weren't together at the time in the comics. Um, Flash was good. I'm just not a huge Barry Allen fan, so I was always kind of mixed on
yeah.
that
Well,
show.
I think I liked Flash more than Arrow just because I liked that kind of aesthetic. You know,
Well,
kind of like a more like lighthearted kind of thing.
I'm a big Flash fan. I just I didn't grow up with Barry Allen. I grew up with Wally West, so I prefer
That's
Wally
fair.
West. And the Wally West in that show isn't the Wally West I grew up with. It's the other Wally West because there's two of them because
Mm,
they tried to change him and then no one liked it, so now they retconned it that they were two separate characters the whole time. Um,
yeah. Well,
this is why you don't do stuff like that comics, but whatever. It's fixed now. Wally's the main Flash again. Um,
well, again, I didn't mess with the comics, so I had no basis for comparison. It was just a fun show for me.
to be
Um,
fair, Barry was dead for most of our lives growing up. Barry came back in 2009. He was dead for like from like 86 up until 85 to 2009.
mhm. And I liked Legends of Tomorrow a lot. I liked the concept of that.
That was cool. I liked the whole Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover. That was really well done.
Hmm.
Titans was a little too dark for me. It didn't. The whole point of the Titans is that they're not dark.
I haven't
Um,
watched that one yet.
it's okay. It was too dark.
Is that part
Super,
of CW or is it separate?
it's part of CW.
Okay.
It's after Crisis, so like the rebooted universe. But
Hmm.
and then I love Superman and Lois. That is like my favorite version of Superman ever, live action.
I think this year I spent a lot of time on the MCU. I think next year I might dive back into CW and go through that whole thing, which is going to be honestly a bigger undertaking than MCU. But
Well, yeah, because
I'm going to
Arrow's
take
like
it.
12
Hmm,
seasons or some shit like that.
it's really long, and if, you know, it's like like a full like 45-minute episodes, like full like 20 something episode seasons. So they're all long. They're all long, but
Well, the
I tend
later
to
ones are
enjoy those. Hmm?
the later ones are a bit shorter. Like I think Superman and Lois is confirmed only 4 seasons. Um, I think Titans was only 4 seasons. Like they shortened them out as it went on.
Yeah, but even so, like, how long are the seasons? Because they're still talking 45-minute episodes either way. So even if they're only 10 episodes, that's still a lot. Like forty
True,
episodes per show at 45 minutes a pop. That's a lot.
true. Yeah, it's one of those things. It's just it'll be an undertaking for next year.
Mm, for sure.
I
But I
do
mean,
want to at
I
some point
feel like
go
I'll
back.
enjoy it more, honestly.
I kind of want to at some point sit down and rewatch the entire DC animated universe. Like
Same.
start with Batman the animated series, go to Superman, watch Batman Beyond, and then watch Justice League Unlimited, Static Shock. Maybe the Zeta Project. It's there.
Teen Titans isn't technically a part of that, is it?
No, Teen Titans is a different continuity.
Which is
So
it's so bizarre because they reference Teen Titans in Batman Beyond. Or no, Static Shock. They reference it in Static Shock.
yes. So Teen Titans started towards the end of I think Justice League Unlimited was on. That's actually one of the reasons why you stop seeing Robin. Because there was a so when Teen Titans started, they actually put an embargo on Justice League Unlimited. They couldn't use like Robin or like any of the Titans characters anymore. A similar thing happened with when the Batman started, which was that other Batman show that happened around the same time.
Yeah.
There was the Bat embargo, where basically every character other than Batman from the Batman mythos you weren't able to use them anymore. In DC, in Justice League Unlimited, so that's why a lot of Batman stuff kind of progressively got less and less as that show went on.
That's fair.
That's also why in the Batman, Batgirl joins him before Robin because Teen Titans was still going on and they couldn't use Robin until later.
So weird.
Yeah, like because they didn't want to have multiple different continuities running around.
Which this is DC we're talking about. Like of all things for them to get like nitpicky about at that point. Like I don't know.
It wasn't so much DC; it was more Warner Brothers than anything.
Still, I don't know.
And then there was Young Justice, which was entirely another continuity. Yeah, it's a it's a mess.
But anyways, DC will be a topic for another episode.
Yes, and I think now that we've gone well over 2 hours, I think it's time we should wrap this up. So once again, guys, thank you for joining us on Geek Addicts. You can find Geek Addicts on all the major podcasting platforms, particularly Apple Podcast and Spotify. And of course, come and check us out over on the Superpod Network. That is superpodnetwork.com, where you can find a whole bunch of awesome shows, videos, blogs, whole bunch of awesome stuff. And be sure to check out all the shows on Superpod Network, including Superpod Saga, Super Ghost Radio, Retro Rehab, Tommy's Video Game Ride Along, A Novel Console, Bar Silence, Find Time, The Elder Trolls Gaming Podcast, Remember 64, Gaming Together, Friday Night Gamecast, and of course the 3 GNC shows, Gaming and Collecting, The 3DO Experience, Geek Addicts, and the Retro Wildlands. And yeah, once again, guys, thank you for joining us, and we will see you all later.
Have a good one.